Welcome to the Signature Required podcast. I'm your host, Miss Brittany Renee, where we talk about entrepreneurship, your purpose, and your journey, and everything in between. Today we have Mr. Jayce Candrea here from Wash the City. Welcome.
Thank you. Super stoked to be here.
I am so happy to have you here, and I'm so happy to just listen to your story and when we get into all that good stuff. But today we will be talking about, what you do and how you navigate through the homelessness community and, sharing your business and all that great stuff. So can you give the audience like a background of who you are, what you do, where you're from?
100%. Well, my name is Jayce, and I am the founder of Wash the City. I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona. I grew up in central-ish Phoenix, and then right before high school, my family moved up to North Phoenix, and so I went to San Jose O'Connor. My senior year, I was tasked with a service project, and so typically you go to like St. Mary's or St. Vincent's, and I went to St. Mary's and I packed food boxes for the day. That was kind of my first taste of serving, and that day left me leaving happy, fulfilled, and ultimately I went home and I told my mom, like, hey, this is something I can see myself doing forever. That just kind of in the back of my mind. I'm deciding on schools for college, and I go to NAU. There's no way I could live there. Just too cold. I was like, I want to snowboard every day, but that was not going to happen.
Right.
So then I went to U of A, and all my three best friends were going there, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll like it here. We went there, didn't really like the vibe. And then my cousin was at GCU studying engineering at the time. He's like, hey, come to a basketball game.
Okay.
And as soon as I went, I was like, okay, this is the spot. So next week, went and toured it. Ultimately, the goal of going to GCU was to become closer to God, become a better man, grow my education. And freshman year did completely the opposite. Really was not focused on the things that I just said. And so ultimately, I was, without knowing, at kind of a low, and then all of a sudden Emma comes into my life. Without her trying, I just naturally became closer to God, started to walk with Christ, and that led to my baptism. 2 months after my baptism, I was driving in my car. The name Washed came to me. And as I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, washed, for one, is the way a shirt should feel and look after it's been washed. It's also a biblical reference to baptism. And as I'm creating this little business model in my head, I'm like, okay, well, I want to create good for my city. How can I do that? Well, if I sell a shirt, I can give a shirt. How am I going to give a shirt? Okay, well, maybe a clothing rack with wheels, and I can walk it around the city, providing homeless people with the opportunity to shop. I'm like, okay, that's a good idea. And then I was like, washed apparel, serving humanity every day. Oh, okay, this is something. So I went home, I bought the domain, I made the Instagram, posted the first picture, and that first picture said for however many followers we get, I'll go out into downtown Phoenix with that many t-shirts.
Wow.
We got like 25 t-shirts, or 25 followers, so we brought 25 t-shirts into downtown Phoenix, and that first day I met Dreb and John. And telling them my vision, telling them what I want to do. Dreb said that you don't understand what it's like to wake up in the morning and not be able to take a shower. All we have is a clean t-shirt. And so right then and there, I was like, okay, this is actually needed. It's not something that I think people are just going to look away from.
Right.
And so 2 years later, we've donated over 3,500 t-shirts. We've helped 5 people actually get off the streets.
Wow.
But ultimately, we've created a product paired with a service. And when you buy our product, we donate 10% of the sale to ending homelessness. And what that means is every week we walk into our city with racks full of clothes and wagons full of daily essentials, providing unsheltered individuals with the opportunity to shop for free. So every purchase gives us someone in need, but when we give hope that leads to trust, and then when the individuals are ready, we help get them off the streets.
That is amazing. And how long have you been doing this?
So we started it just over 2 years ago from the driving in my car. So 2 years and a month now.
Congratulations to you. And I know this is not the right question to ask, so please forgive me. How old are you?
I'm 22.
Wow. Someone just with a heart of servitude and just wanting to help, that's amazing. And I just want you to know that you're doing amazing work, and you're so confident and poised, and you know that you are walking in your purpose and that you are saving and helping save lives. And so I just want to give you your flowers and just say, thank you for the service that you're doing in the community. That's huge. And everything that you said, it's with purpose and intentionality. And that's so important, right? And at 22, I was getting married and then getting a divorce. So very much on the right path, and like you said, just kind of going through your background and just kind of seeing those pivotal moments for yourself. You were young, right? But knowing and learning yourself and who you are and knowing that you want to make a great mark on this world is amazing. So congratulations to you. Congrats. Let's kind of get back into your childhood, like growing up, and what was that like? Because I know you said like you gave your life to Christ in college, right? So how was that transition like?
Yeah, so it's really cool to like sit back. 22, so I still have a lot more that I want to do, but
Absolutely.
like sitting back and being like, okay, when you consider yourself to be a Christian, it's like, okay, I am a Christian, but what do I believe in and what do I do to be a Christian? And so my whole life grew up in a good, loving household. We're Christians. We were by no means above middle class. Grew up in kind of the 2008-9 situation. My dad owns a landscaping company. My mom's in hospitality.
Okay.
So my parents are naturally grinders, and so we didn't really go to church every Sunday, but we were a great, loving home, so it felt like Christ was present, but he wasn't really being followed. And ultimately, I think the thing that kind of changed my family's life was CCV Peoria started their CCV Stars soccer program. Okay. And that was one of my biggest passions at first was sports and soccer. So playing club soccer at a Christ-focused competitive sports environment allowed me to be around that naturally. That also allowed our family to kind of be in that environment. And so I think that was kind of the first time God was like, okay, here's a door, come through. And although we didn't even really know it was there, we were just a part of it. And that was like ultimately why we moved up to the North Valley, was to get closer to CCV for sports, for church. And so just like as a 22-year-old looking back at like, oh wow, that really makes sense. So yeah, I would say that's kind of my more faith journey. And then also growing up in a Title I school, a lot of my classmates or friends were foster youth or young and at risk, and so growing up in that environment was definitely like, obviously as a kid you're blind to it, but you definitely see things differently and experience things differently. And going from Title I to entitled school in North Phoenix, it was a switch. And I love O'Connor, but the demographic change was completely different. Right. And so that was definitely kind of a culture shock, and I have a feeling I'll be able to bring back in my early education in the future of visions for impact.
Absolutely. And I'm a Christian, and I know all the things that I've been through, God got me through. That was just kind of what I was brought up in church. But my parents, they didn't push like we had to go to church every Sunday, but my grandmother was an evangelist, and she went to church every Sunday. And so her and my grandfather would call me and say, hey, you guys want to go to church? And so I would just kind of drag my baby sister along. And as crazy and rebellious and just who I was then, I always gravitated, and I always knew that I had a calling on my life. And so a lot of the things that I went through at 22, like I said, getting married, getting a divorce, and all those different struggles, dealing with depression and anxiety, and really by myself, no one knew that I was dealing with those things. But having that calling on my life, I knew that I was called also to lead my family. And so listening to your story and saying you brought your family kind of around that, but didn't know, it sounds like God chose you, to be that vessel for your family and to lead them in the right path and in the right direction. So that's amazing that you were able to just kind of see that and catch that and not know, but just trusting, right? And kind of being led in that way. I know you said that it's like faith inspired. And when you're talking about business, it's kind of like a fine line, with bringing in religion, I actually had someone come look at our clothes that first Friday, and they're like, I love this, the material. And then he stopped and he said, is this faith-based? And I said, well, I'm a Christian, it's absolutely, I pray over everything that I do, but I kind of was taken back in a sense, my brand is not, quote, faith-based. I don't have any scriptures or anything on it, but I absolutely believe in God. And I just kind of had that moment with myself, like, God, like, I'm not embarrassed of you at all, but do I tell people my brand is faith-based because I'm a Christian? Or, so can we kind of get into, it being like faith-inspired? How do you handle, that working with that type of demographic? Because sometimes they can ask or, oh, well, I'm not a Christian, I don't want to take. Have you experienced anything like that?
Yes and no. I've definitely had people ask. I've never gotten and I say pride a lot, and there's maybe a better word, but like, I take a lot of pride in knowing that like, what we're doing fundamentally is for the community. Absolutely. And so anybody who is a part of this community, it's kind of difficult for them to say no to the product, because it's like, you have this direct outlet to touch somebody's life that needs to be served. Mm-hmm. You can take it. And so with what we're doing, we're not out here throwing, like I said, Bible verses on the t-shirt. We make imagery or tell stories that are biblically influenced that a lot of people don't even know about. Mm-hmm. But there's a tier process of what we create. Mm-hmm. We make the product, and hopefully you see somebody walking down the street, you're like, yo, that's a sick shirt, I'd wear that. You walk up to them and you're like, hey, where'd you get that? They're like, oh, it's a sick brand, Wash the City, they do this, they do that. And then it's like, but what does that mean? And then it's like, oh, well, it means this, it means that. And it's like, we want people to be almost overwhelmed with experience. And we want them to look at something and be like, I know there's more, I want to know more. Mm-hmm. And so the little hit that we put on every piece is Acts 20:35. And the verse reads, "In everything I did, I showed you by this kind of hard work, we must help the weak, remembering the words the Lord Jesus himself said, quotes, it is more blessed to give than to receive." If you can't read that and understand that like that's the better for society, mm-hmm. I really don't understand where you lie in society. And so for me, if somebody asks me, they're like, what does that verse mean? It's like we give them that knowledge. Mm-hmm. And it's like they ask us what this image means, we give them the knowledge. And it's like, we don't hide anything. Mm-hmm. We don't put anything out there to make somebody uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. But if they want to know more, we tell them more. And I think that's kind of the most important thing, is to have, for any Christian, your toolbox ready and equipped for people to ask you questions, because you're going to get them. And that would be, I think, my biggest take on creating something inspired by faith. Mm-hmm. is like, you're going to have to create what's inspiring you, and others are going to have to take it with a grain of salt.
Absolutely. Because when he asked that question, he's like, oh, well, I'm sorry, I can't buy it. I was like, oh my goodness, like that. I never experienced anything like that. But I felt like I handled it well, and I said, no problem, what do you do? And I just kind of started asking, and he just kind of got really comfortable actually with me. We exchanged Instagram handles and things. And he's like, but I really do like the brand. It's just a thing. And I'm like, okay, well, I still love you. No offense or, whatever. And he went about his way. But I had never been in a situation like that with my brand, you know. And so I was just kind of like, okay, I had to pray. Like, God, how do I handle these type of situations? I'm a believer, but when someone asks, like, is your brand faith-based, I kind of try to navigate that the best way possible. But have you had any situations where someone wanted to know more about, what you did, and like were interested in maybe going to church or anything like that? What were those experiences like out there?
As in like the community we're serving?
Yes.
Okay, so I want to kind of just say one quick thing about experiencing somebody who's questioning you. It's because they're curious and they want to know more. Mm-hmm. And so there's so many brands out there that call themselves Christian clothing brands, and they don't, and I mean, I don't know, but like, are they reflecting values? And it's like, those are the people that when they're seeking questions and they see that brand, they're like, ugh, Christianity, but it's like if they look at this brand and they're like, I can get behind that. That's a future believer. And so that's where we're trying to set the precedent that if we're going to do something, we're going to say it and we're going to do it. When it comes to integrating faith into our service, we serve in the same environment to build trust that builds that hope. And so it's typically a 4-step process of meeting an individual and building a relationship. It's typically we walk out there and you can get a hot to cold understanding of where that individual is right off the bat. Do they want to talk with you for one?
Right.
And do they want to know more about what you're doing for two?
Right.
If they don't have either of those, it's a hello, here's what we're giving. We love you and have a blessed day. Number 2 is next time we go out there, it's, hey, my name's Jayce, your name is, and let's have a little conversation. Number 3 is, how can we help you? We want to help you. We want to get you out of this situation. And then day 4 is them saying, how can I get out of this situation? And so within that process, there's never me handing them a Bible saying, come to church with me.
Right.
It's, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. And in Acts 20:35, it says, in everything I did, I showed you by this kind of hard work. We must help the weak. It's not we walk out there and expect change overnight. It's commitment. It's love. It's consistency. And they don't even have to know what we believe to understand why we're doing it. And that, I think, is how we've allowed people to be like, oh, I'm reading the Bible, I'm going to church, like helping people to really start to develop what faith looks like. Because for a lot of these people, they have so much deep scarring experiences in their past that like they're so jaded, they feel so abandoned. Was given this from a sermon the other day, but scars are just proof that you have been healed. And I think that's something that when you can start to tell people that these are scars, they're not open wounds, they can start to move past it. And so it's really a cautious, to answer the question, it's a cautious insertment of our faith within our service, because we're more about giving, and then eventually they'll understand why.
Absolutely. Do you guys revisit the areas that you go to build these relationships and the trust, with these individuals?
100%. So every week our service is in downtown Phoenix. We park at the CVS. We walk down to First Street, and then we walk up to Washington, cut back down to Central, walk up to we have the same route, about a 1.5 2 mile route, that we see about 40% of the same people, 60% of new people. We average about 50 people a day. And so our vision is that if we can serve in this environment, for one, we're serving the people being served, but think about how many people are driving by seeing what we're doing.
Right.
So it's like there's this double-edged sword of us just going in there and we're visibly doing something. And for people driving by, it's like, what are they doing? And it's like, once they know why we're doing it, then they understand it as well. Yeah. So yeah, we like to give them the same environment, and I'll touch on this probably in a second as well, that we have this phrase, our efforts are local, but our hearts are global. We want to serve everybody, but we can't serve everybody. Right. And so the next step for me is, how can I help you help others? And yeah.
I like it. I want to talk a little bit briefly about COVID and how that affected your business. Like you said, you guys are out there, but then you also had mentioned, someone said, like, I have a clean shirt, but my body isn't clean. So how do you guys kind of navigate with that? Have you guys partnered with other community partners? I know that there are a couple that, have vans that come and you can take showers and different things. I work with that population too. I'm in mental health. So we have done like Crystal Day Pause, if you're familiar with them. They have, the station that comes and all that. And then my last location, we had showers. So we would, tell our clients if they wanted to come in before, business hours, then we would give them the opportunity and provide them with towels and toiletries that they need. And it was like literally you just kind of seen like a fresh face and they just felt so good.
Yeah.
So I know that was a big thing. So how do you guys help with that, or have you guys partnered with anyone?
So for COVID, it's definitely, so this was, I don't like saying this because I know that this is just like the trend, but like that COVID entrepreneur, that sitting back, getting time to think, and honestly, maybe that's what we needed, is just time to think. And so this definitely was born through that. We were serving with face mask on our first couple times out there, so like it honestly, in the moment, it obviously was needed, but it feels kind of, looking back, being like, these are our first moments ever, and we can't see the faces. So like, that was, but through COVID, we were not scared. We get out there, we do our thing. When it comes to showers, that's the one thing that we can't provide. That is something that we want to provide.
Okay.
And so Cloud Covered Streets has been kind of a mentor to me, just on how like his level of impact is changing people's lives. We're building a friendship, and it's like they actually get somebody that's like they feel washed. And like for us, we want to get there, but like we understand that we can't have a shower and walk it around downtown Phoenix. So like we will get there. And then Cloud Covered Streets, like working with them, they are so great. They gave us like thousands of socks and underwear, and like, so we were blessed from them. We still have socks that we're handing out from them. I would say that we can't physically provide showers right now, but there are people doing a great job. Absolutely. And we are just trying to be an asset to them. And so, I mean, where we're serving in St. Vincent de Paul area, zone area, there's a ton of resources down there. And so if we can just be kind of that more mental break, the physical we can't provide yet, and also being a very small business, not even a nonprofit, we're limited there, but we obviously want to work with more people and serve people to the best of the ability, to the best of our ability.
Absolutely. Have you guys thought about doing a nonprofit as well? And, you know?
Yeah, so I still, as a young entrepreneur, want to prove myself. For me, I understand that like there's this sense of you have a position to serve, but I have a position to sell and serve. And for me, I love that you get to take something home with you when you purchase our product. I understand that it'd be nice if I had some dude just give us $10,000 and he got to write it off on his taxes, and we could spend that $10,000 however we wanted.
Right.
But we're not there yet. We want to make sure that what we're doing is important for the city, and we're going to take the upfront cost to hopefully make the impact last longer in the backside. Because the transfer of love between a dollar versus an actual story, people get to wear our product, and whenever they're wearing it, anybody that first of all comes up and talks to them, they now have knowledge to share. And then anytime they see somebody in need, they no longer look away, they look at. And that is the most important thing. What we're doing is to not avoid issues, to run at them and be prepared to fix them.
That's amazing. Have you partnered with anyone in mental health, you know, to have that resource for individuals that may be like struggling with their mental?
Definitely want to get better at all relationships, from a B2B business to nonprofit. Like that's where for me, I need to be able to have more time to pursue those relationships, because it's like we get out there and we obviously have somebody who's in severe need, and they're like, where do I go? And I'm like, I got a t-shirt. Like, and it's like, yeah, there's certain situations that the t-shirt and the food, the beverages are great, but there are certain ones that we feel like we're providing nothing. And so definitely want to be more prepared with the resources to provide individuals with proper care. Obviously, I can be like, hey, go to St. Vincent de Paul, hey, go to CBI, everything they've already heard 500,000 times. Right. So it's like until I have a relationship with these people, I feel hopeless in providing certain individuals with that hope.
Understandable. And you're doing great work. So I have a lot of resources myself, and I'll make sure that we connect after
Please.
this, and however I can help you, I totally will be of service. What my resources are your resources, and that's honestly what I live by. We had Isaiah Gomez on, and he talked about, foster care and the things that he's doing, and I understand that you guys did like a collaboration. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
100%. So I'm I can talk a long time. So I always like to give back story and then how we get to where we are. So as starting this project, very naive. I don't know anything about all sides of things I'm doing, just trying to figure it out. And pretty quickly I learned that the population we're serving, there's layers. But ultimately, everybody's born in this world as an innocent child. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, certain individuals are born into environments that ultimately lead them down a series of unfortunate events that result in becoming unsheltered. Mm-hmm. And so your foundation builders are either your home, where there could be physical abuse, mental abuse, drug abuse, lack of good foundation, right, which then you need a good school. And unfortunately, teachers are fairly underpaid, fairly underfunded, where it's 1 versus 30 kids in a classroom that unfortunately, if your foundation at home is not set, you might be a little troubled, you might be a little behind, you're not going to get the attention you need to get to where you need to go. Mm-hmm. And so by the time you're 16, you're underserved, you decide that school is no longer for you, you pursue a minimum wage job, you realize that that's not providing, then maybe pick up a vice, then maybe meet the wrong person, then make the wrong action. That's how you become unsheltered. Right. And so how can we stop the problem before it becomes an issue? Let's look at the school system. And so right away I was like, how can I serve the younger generation? And God moving again, there's a program called Swap Out, and they basically take youth and teach them how to manufacture skateboards, but they walk them through this like professional development course. Okay. I was asked to be a coach in their pilot program, and that program changed my life. And I left that ceremony where I think it was 6 or 9 kids had gone through 12 weeks of building something, and they went up there and presented their project, and almost all of them said that I believe that I can do anything now because I started something and I finished it. Wow. I'm crying when I'm driving home. I'm like, oh my goodness, like these kids are actually being impacted. Yeah. And so from that, I was so inspired that I reached out to Isaiah right away, and I was like, hey, let's figure this out. He's like, yeah, let's do it. And then I reached out to my buddy Jesse with the Greater Good in downtown Phoenix, and we're like, yeah, let's figure it out. And so ultimately we developed a curriculum to teach kids how to design, manufacture, market, and sell. That way they're developing the hard and soft skills of business, mm-hmm. but they're ultimately building tools to build a better future. Mm-hmm. And so we're currently in the brainstorming process. I actually just reached out to Sid, one of the kids that we serve, and it's like, okay, Sid, how can we give you a leadership role now? How can you teach our next wave of kids in this Inspired program? And so definitely that's something that I want to keep building on.
So building on that, do you guys have any plans for like Super Bowl coming up, or for business, or kind of getting in the city, because there's going to be a lot more movement down there? Yeah,
we got First Friday this Friday. So First Friday, we love pop-up shops. That's how we met. So we love to be out in the community. Obviously, if you want to scale, you got to figure it out online, but we're also, like I said, we want to prove ourselves. So First Friday, and then we're going to be at Hants Park Thursday, Friday, Vegan Social Saturday, and I'm a Chiefs fan, so I'll be taking the day off Sunday. Okay. So yeah, and that's kind of our lineup for the next 2 weeks, and then we're developing a new collection right now to release, I don't even know when, probably end of February. I get so caught up on this. I wouldn't have called myself an artist 2-3 years ago, but now that I have this medium, I'm almost like an extremist when it comes to artistry. Like, I want to tell a story, and sometimes I get so caught up in the story that it's like, just need to make the product, put it up there, and let people receive it. And I think sometimes I get so caught up on trying to get people to walk down this path where it's like they need to just experience the path themselves. So that being said, for this new collection, we're really just going to make the best product we can, the best vision, the best imagery, and we're going to post it up there. We're going to post a lot of videos, we're going to share our content, but we want to get better at serving, and that's really our vision for 2023, is to serve 9,000 people. That 9,000 number reflects how many individuals are actually experiencing homelessness in our city, either sheltered or unsheltered. And that 9,000 is obviously a huge goal, considering we have up to date served 3,500. And that number is broken down by us tracking units of impact. And the units of impact is then broken down into $3, which on a $30 t-shirt reflects 10% of everything. And so every time we give $3, that's going to hopefully be able to provide food, clothing, and hope for somebody living on the streets of our city. But to kind of wrap this all around again, we serve in downtown Phoenix, but we want to help Tempe, Mesa, Sunny Slope, Glendale. And so how can we help Signature Required help Mesa? And so looking at that, being like, okay, well, there's option 1, there's option 2, there's option 3, but ultimately we're not afraid to take those funds and give them into an organization that's already providing the services here, because it's still a unit of impact and we don't have to have our feet on the floor to be able to actually serve.
Absolutely. Well, we're all in, and however we can help, we are all in. I want to talk about the imagery and how you guys get that to production. Where do you guys pull from? I know you said, biblically sometimes, and is someone like drawing out pictures, or, how do you guys craft your shit?
So, like I said, I wouldn't have considered myself an artist, but having this medium, I've almost forced myself to be. Okay. And in the past 2 years, I feel like I've probably created 90% of the artwork, and then the 10% has been friends, employee, just a lot of outside influence in that 10%. And ultimately, that 90% are things that come from my heart. And so it's either a biblically inspired illustration that we've hand drawn to kind of give you a story of how we came about a piece. Ray, one of the individuals we helped get off the streets, he's no longer homeless, but we were washing the city one day and he's laying on the floor where he used to be, and I was like, what's up, homie, how you doing? And he's like, I'm like, okay. And he pretty much told me he wanted to end his life. And I was like, okay, well, that's not gonna happen. And he said that his wife had maybe been cheating on him or something, and I was like, okay, that's very hard, but let's grab a good dinner tomorrow. Let's go get some steak or something, and I'll pick you up at your place at 4, and we'll go talk. Next day, 3 o'clock comes around, no answer. I'm like, okay. I go to his place, knock on the door, no answer, and then just kind of frustrated at this point. And then I get a call, I'm in downtown, and I'm like, oh man. So I at first didn't want to go, because I was just frustrated, and I'm like, okay, well, I have to go. And then I go down there, and it just was an interesting day, because first of all, I had already been dealt with the words that he told me that are pretty impactful. And so just kind of, and then we're going down there, and it feels like a lot of the people that we serve were just in the wrong mindset, like doing wrong things, and just like I see a lot of people doing weird stuff. And so ultimately I park my car, I get my skateboard, I ride out to Ray, and I see the homie just laying on the floor like crying, and I'm like, okay, let's get up. So I'm carrying this grown man to the tram, and we're sitting there, and he's in tears crying because he's in so much pain. And I was like, gonna set this man on a train and hopefully let him get home, and he's drunk and can barely walk. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go get my car. And so as I'm going to get my car, I'm like, how can I explain this day to people in a way that makes sense? And I see another person that we served in distress walking across the street, throws his bag on the floor, and as we're walking by, there's a red box sitting on the ground. I flip it over, and it's a box of dominoes. And I'm like, oh, life is like a box of dominoes. You spend your whole life stacking these pieces up, and it can take 1 second to knock it all down. So quotes, don't knock yourself down. And just right then and there, I was like, okay, that's fire. So we made a t-shirt out of that.
Wow.
And then went and got Ray, and I get into my car, and I'm like, well, just don't throw up. Anything, just don't throw up. And so we're sitting in there, and he is obviously heartbroken, physically broken. And I'm like, Ray, like, what do you want? What song do you want? He's like, Thrill's Gone, BB King. And I'm like, okay. I play it, sings the whole song, and I was like vibing heavy. I was like, yo, this is hard. And ultimately that translated into about half a year later, I was asked to be in a fashion show. And I was like, yeah, let's get Ray in the fashion show. And so the audio for our whole entire walk started out the song that he used to sing when he was homeless. He basically says, somebody help me, and then goes into this like 30-second clip that transitions into The Thrill Is Gone, where he then is walking through. And it was like, nobody knew that story, but the gravity of it was pretty dope. So that's how we create.
Absolutely. That's dope. That's super dope. Like I said, just the intentionality behind, your brand. I know you're going to be very successful. Just keep walking in that and, your path and all that. Our biggest question here on the Signature Required podcast is, what is your purpose? Do you believe that you're walking in that?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I would definitely say I feel like I'm walking where I am supposed to be. My moonshot goals are like absolutely nuts. So for me, my purpose is to serve my community until I feel called to serve another community, and I feel like I'm trying to do that my best. But ultimately, my goal is to serve 1 million people, and I have a lot of ideas how we can get there.
That's awesome. Do you have any pain points or where that we can help you or be of assistance, or even just the community, and what aspects, are you guys needing a little bit more? Definitely,
I would say, for one, following Wash the City on Instagram is the best way to follow what we're doing. That's kind of our main channel of communication to the public. If you want to buy a t-shirt, please buy a t-shirt. That's the best first step to help. The second step is to come out and serve with us. And then the third step is to continue living in a way that's gracious towards others. So keeping your eyes open to those in need and not being afraid to serve them when you're called and compelled.
Absolutely. How does someone connect with you guys to help serve? And, do you guys have certain days that they come out, or do you guys do it every day?
We're still trying to get better at inviting people. Right now, when this drops, it might be a little bit different, but you can DM us. That's the easiest way. We're developing a remind right now, so like basically a send all, come all, of like, if you scan this QR code once a week or once a month, whenever we have a big event, we'll be like, hey, we need 9 people, come out. So getting into that remind group chat would be huge, because then it's like anytime that you can, you're welcome to. But if you have Wednesdays at 4 o'clock, that's kind of our Wash the City day, and you can come out with us and bring joy and whatever else you want to bring.
Awesome. Well, I love that. I'll make sure that we have, all your information where people can connect with you. My church is really, really big on going out into the community and helping underserved communities. My pastor has a phenomenal testimony. He was also here on the Signature Required podcast, but he was homeless in 5 different states. Yeah, his testimony is remarkable, and he is a great man of God, and I know that he's going to help a lot of people, and he does a lot of serving and different things like that. So would really like to connect on whatever capacity or however we can, 100%. Because that's totally what our heart is, to serve and to be of service, and I believe that that's one of our biggest responsibilities here on earth. So Wash the City is your Instagram handle. Do you guys have a website or anything?
washthecity.co.
Okay, washthecity.co, and that's where they can purchase t-shirts and all that good stuff.
That, and then we doing a lot of markets, but definitely trying to figure out online. So if you want to purchase a product online, that'd be great as well.
Okay, awesome. Well, is there any last thing that you want to leave with the audience?
Yeah, I guess the 2023 vision, when I talk about like being faith inspired and using that verse, Acts 20:35, from a giving perspective, when you start to give and you start to let God allow you to give, the first couple times are for your own benefit.
Mm-hmm.
You're allowing yourself to feel good, and it makes you feel good, so you want to do it more. Once you give and you keep giving and you feel like you can't give more, you need to keep giving.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, you're not doing it anymore for yourself. And so for me, I struggled with this 1-to-1 ratio of if I give 1, I get 1. If I give 2, I get 2.
Mm-hmm.
And that is horrible for your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, my vision for 2023 is to pick up your mat and go. In times where I'm like, this is hard, how can I make more money? What can I do? Just go. Just keep going. And I think that is gonna separate the mind from being so focused on a number than rather the impact that comes with just working.
Absolutely.
And that's my biggest thing, is to inspire other people to just go. Don't wait, don't sit, just go, and things are gonna start to happen.
That's amazing. That's amazing. You have a lot of wisdom to be so young. And so just, keep talking, keep speaking, keep sharing your story, keep inspiring, keep encouraging, especially in this generation that we're living in now. We need a lot of you in this community. So I just want to encourage you that, what you're doing is definitely making an impact, and great things are in your horizon. So just keep leading. Absolutely. Well, this will wrap up the Signature Require podcast. I am your host, Miss Brittany Renee. If you're looking for a personal development coach, I can be found at BrittanyRenee.com. If you want to grab some merch for Signature Required, signaturerequired.com. And if you have anything coming up, feel free to let us know. We'd love to have you on the podcast. However we can get the message out. You're always welcome here. So
100%.
thank you for coming on the Signature Require podcast, and we will see you guys next time. Peace.